The Olds 442 was a spectacular muscle car. Powerful engine, gorgeous looks, great handling. It would take some ambitious thinking to make this car any better, but Hearst was known for that kind of thinking. What George Hearst was after was an executive hot rod, a tricked-up 442 featuring the bad boy 455 cubic inch engine instead of the usual 400 motor would fill this bill nicely. Hearst immediately saw the possibilities, and so did Oldsmobile, who gave the go-ahead to make 500 cars. But there were a couple of problems. To make it to the dealers before the end of the '68 model year, they had to make all of them in just 30 days.
By the time I got the program approved, there was no time, and I needed a building.
Ted Lucas, Oldsmobile's chief engineer at the time, remembers how they solved these little issues.
That was a creative thing, believe me. I introduced Doc to John Demmer.
John was already a supplier to General Motors, and John was also an enthusiast.
And we got the cars out and shipped them over to John Demmer to put the shifter in, put the stripes on it and the wing on it.
This was a picture of the '68 cars. This is at a Demmer facility, and you can see this is not the height of automation.
There was one more minor detail. GM had a policy that prevented engines larger than 400 cubic inches in intermediate cars. But Doc Watson had a fix for that one, too.
And for everybody that wants to know, they already had the 455s in them.
The Olds 455 prescribed by the doctor was heated up especially for this application. It featured a 474 lift cam, the big valve heads from the 442, a rejetted Rochester quadrajet carb, and a recurve distributor. The 442's force air induction system helped this engine make 390 horsepower and 500 foot-pounds of torque. The car was otherwise standard issue Olds 442, but needless to say, they all featured a Hearst shifter. Since Olds wasn't geared up to do Hearst's signature gold color, the '68 Hearst Olds came in Peruvian silver, with a special black accent stripe and the black rear panel laid on at Demmer. These were highlighted by white pinstripes, and every one was hand-painted by a fellow named Paul Hatton, who performed this work at the princely sum of $20 per car.
He'd come over at night and hand stripe those all by himself perfectly, smoking a cigarette and drinking a beer.
By the end of the fast and furious 30 days, 515 of these cars had been built. But thanks to the power of the Hearst trademark, Olds dealers had placed orders for nearly 3,000 of them. Because of this demand and the media attention attracted by this marriage of Olds and Hearst, for 1969, Hearst rolled out 914 copies, including 2 convertibles. The '69 car received a more Hearst-like paint scheme, with fire frost gold stripes on its white body. Cold air to the 455 now came from an outrageous dual inlet hood scoop, and a functional rear wing now sat on the deck lid. Other special touches to the '69 Hearst Olds included English-style racing mirrors, custom headrests, and 60 series tires on 15-inch Olds rally wheels. The '72 Hearst Olds enjoyed the honor of being the first Indianapolis 500 pace car to be produced not by a major automaker, but by a specialty company. It continued the tradition of the executive hot rod, with 499 coupes and 120 convertibles getting the treatment this year. Over the next 15 years, 7 more versions of the Hearst Olds were created. Each one showed the special style that only a team of hot rodders, led by a man named Hearst, could bring to the project. The Hearst Olds today sits at the top of the must-have list for every classic car collector. And each one, from 1968 to 1984, is exactly what George Hearst, Doc Watson, Dick Chrysler, and the rest of their team intended it to be. The muscle car, raised to the next level.
They represented the excitement and the passion that people have for automobiles today would belong to the person who bought it.
Hearst had now grown into the muscle car era's first mega company, and they were just getting limbered up. Stay with us for some of Hearst's most unique rides when the American muscle car continues. Even though they were best known around America's drag strips, Hearst was a player in every type of American motorsports, from Indy to Bonneville. In In 1965, the Summers brothers led an assault on the land speed record with this car, the Goldenrod. Powered by 4 Chrysler Hemi engines, the Goldenrod posted a new record of over 409 miles per hour, with much of the engineering coming from Hearst Research and Development. But drag racing was still George Hurst's first love. And in 1969, American Motors came in for a shot of that love. What resulted was the AMX SS, a takeoff on the Hemi Barracudas and Darts from years earlier. 53 AMXs, minus a lot of heavy things they'd never need as full-on drag cars, like front fender supports, the front sway bar, hood hinges, and even the horn, were delivered to Hearst Performance Research. When they rolled out, they were legal superstockers with heavy-duty 444 rear ends, a Lakewood scatter shield, and of course, a Hurst shifter. Under the hood, the AMX 390 got the full treatment with special crane cylinder heads, an Edelbrock intake manifold, and 2 Holley 650s, Doug's headers, and a high-capacity cooling system. Racers like Wally Booth and Shirley the Dragon Lady Shahan campaigned these Hearst AMXs all through the 1969 season, and the excitement generated by this car led to another AMC Hearst creation, but this one was for the street. American Motors was always known for its economy-minded cars. This wasn't one of them. The little Rambler Rogue was outfitted with the AMX's 315 horsepower, 390 cubic inch engine. Behind this came a Borg-Warner 4-speed transmission, shifted by, you guessed it, a Hurst shifter, and a twin-grip 354 rear axle. This much torque in this little car, which just barely weighed in at 3,000 pounds, was a rocket launch. With its in-your-face red, white, and blue paint job and a wink toward those who made Rambler jokes, they called this car the Hearst Scrambler. Slated for an initial run of 500 cars, the Scrambler soon became an out-of-stock item at your local AMC dealer. So Hearst tooled up another 1,012 of these little sleds with a more sedate but equally patriotic paint scheme. Hearst's last collaboration with Chrysler in the 60s was a big one, over 4,000 pounds to be exact. The 1969 Chrysler 300 Hearst enjoys the distinction of being the fastest letter car ever built, and certainly the most massive Hearst car ever created. A fiberglass power bulge hood and a trick rear deck spoiler, gold 15-inch Chrysler road wheels with trim rings, and Hearst ID badges everywhere made this car immediately recognizable as not just another big Chrysler, but something truly special. With its 375-horse 440 Magnum power plant and all of Chrysler's top-of-the-line Imperial options, the 300 Hearst was a great way to pay tribute to a memorable car. Hearst and Pontiac had been good friends since the early 60s and had enjoyed many successful ventures together. So in 1970, the two companies revived this old friendship with a very cool car called the Grand Prix Ssj. Starting with a white or black Grand Prix Model J optioned according to the buyer's taste, Hearst applied Fire Frost gold paint accents to the hood, roof, and deck, installed a power sunroof and the vinyl landau top, and completed the assembly according to the customer's order, with options like Hearst roll control, a digital computer, and even a mobile phone. You could order your SSJ with bench seats or a console and buckets. But either way, the turbo-hydromatic transmission was shifted with, imagine that, a Hearst shifter. The Grand Prix Ssj was one of the more rare cars from Hearst, and just about 200 cars were done between 1970 and 72. As the 70s progressed and the high-performance industry succumbed to pressures to tone it down a little, Hearst, like all of us, would undergo some changes. George Hearst left the company he built in 1970, and after changing hands a couple of times, in 1981, Hearst was acquired by Cars and Concepts, a company created by former Hearst employee Dick Chrysler.
I was always in love with the company. I always loved it. I always wanted to work there right from the get-go, and I felt that if I had the opportunity to buy the company, I would, and it came on the market. You know, it was just a natural fit for it, to find a home for it.
For the next 6 years, under Chrysler's leadership, the Hearst Olds program was revived, making some of the decade's best performing and most collectible cars. Doc Watson left Hearst in the late 60s and is an engineering design consultant today, working on everything from alternative fuels to concept cars. The big joy of his life these days is helping his kids with their careers.
Truly enjoying working with my children. My son does a lot of work with a company called TDM, and my daughter has a cosmetics company, and now she's tying into cars and she's bringing out a new line of products called Cruising Cosmetics. I feel very blessed. I'm having fun.
Sadly, in ill health for some years, George Hurst passed on in 1986, and with him passed an era. George Hurst helped create a time in America when cars were more excitement than plain transportation. Drag racing was more fun than big business, and there was room in the world for people who dreamed big dreams. The cars from Hearst are just a few of the gifts left to us by this man of vision. They were his way of sharing the Hearst magic with all of us. Thanks for watching, and remember, don't crush them, restore them.